Slave. 1. Noun. A person who is the property of and wholly subject to another, a bond servant. 2. Noun. A person entirely under the domination of some influence or person. When someone says the word slave, the first thing that comes to mind is
Black people.
Like black slaves, like slaves from back then.
Someone who's like forced to work for someone else.
When someone says the word slave, I think of the slave trade that took place in America.
But in my opinion, there's much more to the word. When I asked my peers and elders what the word slave meant to them, the first thing that popped up in their minds was the slavery that happened hundreds of years ago with African Americans. Why?
Just based off of things in the past and how people, not just black, but all different races had to work for others unwillingly.
Because that's all we really learned about in school, about like slaves back then.
Slaves were usually black people.
Slavery started in about 1619 and ended in 1865. Virginia was the first English colony in North America to import slaves. Slavery spread to the areas where there were good quality soil for large plantations of high value cash crops, such as tobacco, cotton, sugar, and coffee. From the 16th to the 19th centuries, an estimated 12 million Africans were shipped as slaves to America. Slaves resisted the institution through rebellions and non-compliance, and escaped it through travel to non-slave states in Canada, facilitated by the Underground Railroad. Slavery was one of the main reasons for the Civil War. After the Union's victory, slavery was made illegal and the 13th Amendment was passed. But these aren't the only types of slavery. After analyzing the word and its meaning, I've noticed that sex slaves and the slaves in the past aren't the only two types of slaves. The word means much more. The second definition in the Webster's Dictionary sums it all up. It states that a slave is a person entirely under the domination of some influential person, meaning that sometimes you can be a slave and not even know it. This definition and the Book of Mercy by Toni Morrison took me on a journey never to be forgotten. With the definition of the word slave, I wrote down a list of 5 possible ways people could be slaves to something. Even though all of them were important, 3 stuck out to me. Those 3 were love, drugs, and money. Love is what everyone wants. It doesn't matter if you're a girl or a boy. Everyone wants to be in love. I created a survey, and 45% of people answered that they or someone they knew has been a slave to love. But what does that mean? Love is an intense feeling or affection towards someone or something. And when you combine this to the second definition of slave, it gets kind of scary. Going back to the second definition of slave, it states that you're only a slave if you're entirely under an influential person. When you're in love, it's really easy to fall into that trap. One person I interviewed said that she was in love, and she had to make certain decisions that she normally wouldn't have to, and that her partner had a huge influence on the decisions she made. She also stated that even if she didn't agree with the choice she made, she didn't care, because at the end of the day, she wasn't alone. But that's not where it gets scary. It gets scary when you would do whatever you have to keep that person in your life. Even if the relationship is terrible, you allow love in your heart to overthrow your mind. So it doesn't matter if they beat you or cheat on you, they're still with you. As long as they say they care for you and they love you, the abuse and cheating doesn't matter, because according to my friend, that night you're not alone. But some say you can't be a slave to love, as if they don't know that a woman or a man being under the complete control over someone they love isn't the same as a black person being dominated by a white master hundreds of years ago, which was the people I interviewed definition of slave. So being a slave to love is common. And even though 45% of people I surveyed say they have been a slave to love before, lets me know that the other 55% have good heads, just don't want to admit it out of embarrassment or haven't noticed that they too are a slave. Drugs are very addictive, and once you take a drug, it's hard to stop. And pretty soon the drug you take will control your life. This brings me to the next way someone can be a slave. Topic of discussion: drugs. Some people are slaves to love, but everyone who does drugs is a slave to it. When you're a drug addict, you would do anything to get a fix. I've personally saw people pretending to be homeless just to get money to buy drugs. It's really easy to connect the second definition of slave to drug addicts, because you are under the domination of the substance you are using. When you're a slave to drugs, nothing matters anymore. You lose your house, family, your mind, your life. You go to such great expense to fulfill a high, such as robbing someone. Not only does this relate to the second definition, but also the first, because when you're on drugs, you are a bond servant. This also makes you a slave. Money, money, money. Can you ever have enough of it? The last comment I made explains it all. Most people think you can never have enough money, so they go to great extremes to ensure they have plenty. People who are slaves to money steal things from people just to have money in their pocket, or even do illegal work, such as selling drugs. Sometimes people even kill people for money. This makes you a slave. But a person stealing and doing illegal work isn't the only way they can be slaves to money. You can also be a slave to your money by your money telling you what you can't have. For example, I can't have this car or take this vacation because I cannot afford it. You are basically under the domination of your money because your money is telling you what you can and not do. So doesn't this make you a slave? You are under the domination of money, which is basically what definition 2 talks about. Everyone loves money, but some people will do crazy things because they love money way too much, which makes them a slave. So a slave doesn't have to be black and doesn't have to be forced to work without pay. A slave can be anyone to anything. A slave could be you.